Hi everyone, this is Anil. Welcome to video on how to create a data model of a ServiceNow app using ServiceNow. So think of it as a digital twin of a ServiceNow app. In this video, we will cover following topics. First, we will create a file record, which is a table in the custom application I have built, which will be used to retrieve application details. Then we'll also see what are the other tables involved in the background, which is working to generate this data model. And then the output of the uh, this background process is it generates a file called with extension called .gml, which is a GraphML file. And then we'll also see what are the classes which are in scope of this data model, and then what are the relationships which are part of this data model. First, we'll start with file record. So there is a scoped application that I've built called AwesomeNow CreativeWorks. In this, there's a table called file, and let's open this GRC advanced risk. Now, what this is doing is it is trying to generate a data model file for this scoped application. It's called GRC advanced risk. So in order to generate a data model, we have to click on this UI action called create app digital twin. So I click on that. So once I do that, it will move the state to processing, and then it will start populating the child tables, which is graph and then node and label and so on. Basically, the different building blocks which are required to create this data model, right? Let's give it a minute for it to populate these tables. Now we can see that the graphs table is populated. Let's open that. So here we see that this is a graph record and then it has nodes. There are 507 nodes or 507 nodes, which means there are 507 objects which will be part of your data model. It keeps adding more, so it's 877 now. So let's let it complete that. So now it has created completing the nodes. Now think of node as a type of or class of record. Like for example, if I group by on the node class, you'll understand better. Let me open this a new window. So think of node class or node as a each update type. Like for example, it's a business application or a client script or application menu. So the various objects within that scoped application, they're all they come up as nodes, and there is a configuration table which allows us to control which classes are in scope of this data model, so that drives these. Now, if I go back to the graph again, and then there is something called as edges. So edges represent connection between the nodes, which means it tells us how the nodes are connected to each other. That's your edges. So we have 676 of them, which means it shows connection between 676 connections between these individual objects. Like for example, which business rule is being used by which table and so on. So that's an example connection, right? And you can see that also here, the label tells us what is the uh, connection. Like, so you see business rules, and similarly we'll say script include and so on and so forth, client scripts, right? All of this. Now if I go back now here, then and go to the file. Now the file has an attachment and the state is processed, which means it has completed creating the data model. Now let's download this. So before I download, I'll show the naming convention of the file. The file name will have the scoped application name we are trying to analyze, and then there is a date timestamp to keep it unique. So I click on download. So it downloads the file. The file has an extension of .gml. I'll open this file in a tool called GraphML editor. It's from Yworks. And this is how it looks like at the very beginning. And then there's an option to change the layout. So if you click on one-click layout, it automatically decides what is the best layout for this data, and it will represent that. So let's click on that. And it will try to process all this nodes and edges and graph, and it will lay them out in a format that is readable and understandable, right? Now, this is how the whole data model looks like. Now, there are a lot of components in it, so which is why it's like if yeah, in when you see when you do a fit to screen, it shows in this format. Now let's try to reset the zoom, and then you can see all of that at 1:1 level. Now if I slowly zoom out, you'll start seeing that uh, the different objects. Now let's take one table as an example and try to zoom there. So this is so this is one table, and this table has client scripts, which are these ones here. Uh, and then similarly, you have there should be other types of objects like script includes, for example, and then UI actions. So all these are uh, associated to this table in question, which is this one here, right? SN risk advanced base automation factor. So this is one table, and then the client scripts which are as part of that, the script include which is consuming it, and so on. Now, similarly, there is one more table here, for example, that's called SN risk advanced risk assessment instance, and it has all these business rules and uh, you know client scripts and so on. So if I slowly zoom out, keeping the context as that table, you will see what are all the table, what are all the objects which are part of that table, right? All these. So there is UI actions, there is business rules, client scripts, and so on. And same applies to all the other tables also and all the other objects. So basically, in summary, it gives you a data model of a given scoped application, and it tries to connect those nodes based on the relevance. Like for example, it connects a business application, a business rule to the table, and so on. And now let's look at other tables which are involved in this configuration. So if I go back to ServiceNow, we have seen this already file and then the graphics. Now if I drill down, and then if you go to node, then or edges, let's start from node. So if you go to node, then we need to have graphics also for the node. There are two graphic tables. One is graphics, which tells you what is the shape of that object or node in the data model that is defined here, and then what is the width, height, and so on. And similarly, the fill color is also defined here. And next comes the graphics, label graphics, which tells you what text should be present on the node. Now, if you see this on the data model, let's take this example again, the table. So you can see that the table has uh, so if I try to go to the properties of the table, you can see that the table has a shape called octagon, and then the fill color is this, which is defined in our table in ServiceNow, right? This comes from that configuration. So same thing applies to client scripts and so on. So that is how this data is uh, generated. Now, similar to nodes, edges also will have graphics. So edge graphics will tell us like what is the arrow type and all that. So that is defined here, and then the arrow color. So that's about the backend tables which are building this data model. Next, we'll look at the configuration. So to look at the configuration, the first configuration is allowed classes. Uh, so let's start from there. So here we can see there's a table called allowed classes, which is defining what classes are in scope of this data model. So we have this alias, this sub application, application template, ATF, and so on. So these are all the allowed ones. Now this is a configuration, which means if I have to enable any other class, then that also I can do. So for example, let's say if I have to enable AIS dictionary, then I just go here and set this to yes. And next time when we run this job, it will go and include that also in the data model generation. That's the first configuration. The next one is the label graphics configuration. So as part of that, yeah, the next configuration is label graphic lookup, which has mapping between the color and the color, the node shape, and the taxonomy definition, which is nothing but the, the object class. Like for example, access roles is for ACLs, and then similarly you'll have business rules, and similarly you have script includes and so on. Right now, whatever is the class name in sys metadata, that is the class name is which is used here for the mapping. So this tells us what is the node shape, and similarly it tells us what is the fill color of the node, all of that. So this is one more configuration which is available in the backend. So which means if you want to change any colors or change the node shape, then that is done here. And next comes the different relationships which are in scope. So that is defined in the data source. So I'll open the data source, and there we have setup configuration in terms of how to translate the metadata file into generating the edges. So let's take business rules, for example. So if you see here, so if the table is a business rule, then we will fetch the table name of the business rule using the collection column, and then using from the collection column, we'll again query the DB object table, and then we'll get the table information. That's how we are constructing that edge information. And then I'll show one more example for view actions. The same applies to view action. So if the the object is view action, then it will find the table for that. And same applies to script includes. But script includes, it's a little different. So because script include doesn't have a direct table reference, we traverse the script itself, and then we try to identify the list of tables and then use that. So that's how we're trying to identify what tables are being called in the script include. So that is done here. The section does it. And then we build individual nodes for that. So that's the list of relationships which are available. So they're all configured here. Now this is all part of a scoped application called AwesomeNow CreativeWorks, and I'm going to publish this to to GitHub, and so it will be available there for consumption. Right? So I'm going to share the link of this GitHub also as part of the description of this video, and I'll also put a community link where I have documented all this notes for this app. And I'm planning to make refinements to this app. So if you have any feedback or if you want to see any features in this app, then please do let me know, and I'll try to incorporate them. And if you want to contribute this also, you can do that. So yeah, reach out to me. Thank you for watching. This is Anil.